Today we're going to talk about protein specifically. Again, I've been talking a lot about fat, but what about the protein amounts on these low carb diets? Let's go. Welcome everyone to my very controversial channel. Let's go. Let's talk about protein because I've been talking a lot about fat. What about the protein? And what about what type of low carb diet should you do? If you do keto or low carb high fat or carnivore, snake or lion diet, should the protein amounts change within these different low carb sphere diets? First, I want to say I was going to do a video on Maria Emmerich. I was going to showcase one of her videos where she's talking about not eating her food and becoming underweight and becoming so busy and not eating and not having the lust to eat anything. But I'm not going to take the video and deconstruct it because I just but I'm going to talk about it as I talk about all the other gurus and people who are confused about how much protein you should actually consume to be healthy, because that's really what it's about. Now with Maria or Steak and Butter Gal or any other female that is showing you large plates of food, most likely they're not eating that food. And I think that Maria pretty much shows you that you would make food for the camera and then not eat it. Y'all, stop being completely duped by a bunch of nonsense and fluckery, because people, I get it, people want to make money, but when you start not being honest, Maria had to address the comments because she was just getting them nonstop. You can't ignore it and ignore it and ignore it. It's like Eugenia Cooney or whatever. At some point, you're going to have to address the elephant in the room. Now, this is not about her character. I think that all these gurus, the sense I get is nobody's a complete DICK. What I don't like is that there are people actually struggling with their health, getting the worst advice I've ever heard in my life. Now, Maria was making recipe books and not eating. How many of them more is putting big plates of food and then not eating it and going, I only poop once a week and my stomach's flat? Lie. And I think that some of these people lie so much they believe in their own lies. When you have affiliates and you're making money and you're watching the cash come in and you're popular, it's okay to sit there and eat a bunch of meat on camera as long as the coins ching ching keep coming in. Now, but the reality is most people can't eat a lot of protein because they don't have enough digestive equipment to do that. Or they have a leaking gut and they're not able to absorb and utilize the amino acids coming in such large volumes, and they begin to have little hiccups. Like it could start as something as simple as constipation, or a little bit of back pain, or the foot starts to hurt, or they feel super tired, or the blood sugar's skyrocketing, menstrual cycle gets weird, they have joint pain, they just start gaining weight. So why would all of these negative effects happen if you're not eating carbs? Well, before I've spoken about blood sugar. If you are consuming bolus amounts or bowls of protein, what's actually happening? Your body can only utilize about 30 grams, and that's to the athlete. Okay, with a good digestion, about 30 grams of total protein, not weight. It's about 5 ounces, let's say, of cooked meat. You can utilize that much if you're very active and you've got a good digestive tract, but the average person doesn't. So even 5 ounces, especially if you eat it too fast, can instantly start creating problems within the system, starting with your blood sugar. What your body cannot utilize in that meat must be of use. So it's stored as fat for later use because the body doesn't know we're living in the modern time. Right? It's all about energy, conservation, because we don't know where our next meal is coming in, because the body doesn't understand that the refrigerator's right over there. So with that excess protein, it's going to convert into glucose, and you're going to start storing it as fat. In the beginning, when people change their diets radically, they might notice weight loss or water loss, or even a shift in their insulin dropping. But just wait. Tick tock, tick tock. That will change, because if you're not in ketosis and that protein cannot be converted to muscle glycogen, at some point the risk benefit ratio, okay, your inflammation went down, you've got more energy for a moment, but then it'll crash because your blood sugar eventually starts going like this with a lot of protein. Remember, you have to have stomach acid, protease, peptides. You've got to have a working gallbladder and pancreatic lipase to be able to just break down that meat. You have to. And you have to have a strong gut wall to be able to absorb the nutrition in that meat. Like, let's say something as simple as potassium. Why people on a steak diet fail. Because if you have a leaking gut and there's not a lot of potassium, then your electrolytes tank. That's a later subject. Big amounts of protein will back you up. You become constipated, which means the body's reabsorbing toxins, and then we've got the dehydration coupled. So dehydration, then low blood pressure, constipation, back pain, just from eating too much meat and not balancing your electrolytes. Even if you balance your electrolytes and you're eating bolus amounts of meat, you can still end up having issues with the kidneys because you're constantly losing water, and then the protein byproducts are still going through the kidneys. So even if you feel like you've gotten your electrolytes in balance, if you have a leaking gut, you may not absorb those minerals to perfection and still have problems. I know. There's also the problem with leaky gut that people can develop high B12, high iron levels, which can turn into a very disastrous disease called hemochromatosis. Not good, with high levels of iron, which is very toxic to the body. Frank Tufano developed that eating a carnivore diet, and he was huge at some point in the carnivore sphere, and he's back on carbs, so he lost his audience, but he still has a company called Frankie's Meats, which actually I heard has done sort of well as far as quality control. When you eat all that meat, your blood sugar is going to spike drop. And then when your blood sugar is dysregulated, then now we're into cortisol rhythm of too much cortisol being released, and then we've got sodium loss, and then we've got fluid loss anyway, and then our insulin starts to resist a little bit, to a lot bit. Yes. And when you have a leaking gut and you've got blood sugar dysregulation, you're dehydrated, now your gut wall gets weaker, right? Because you're inflamed over here because this diet's not working. And now your gut's like, hey, I'm trying to sew and seal up, and now we're beginning to pull apart again. And that's why people notice in the beginning that they feel great, and then after a while they might see foamy urine, or they might see high B12 numbers start to rise. So, I mean, people are like, well, what's the solution? Well, it's not to eat all that protein, right? You don't need to eat over 100 grams of protein as a male. You really don't need to eat over 75 to 80 grams of protein as a female who's active, who's got muscles, because it's the size, it's your age in terms of how healthy you are, that will indicate if you've got GLUT4 receptor development, how much protein you should actually eat. If you've got digestive enzymes, that'll break down the protein enough caloric stomach acid. So these pictures and plates, now I know with Sean, I remember speaking to him, and he said that when he doesn't eat the amount of protein that he does, he drops weight because he was doing high fat to deal with some neck and back pain. He has shown his A1C, I think A1C, I'm not really sure, I think his blood sugar numbers, and they're like this. It's sort of like the elephant in the room. It's like Paul Saladino switched over to like this fruit diet. It's not a carnivore diet. Switched over to fruit, in my opinion, and stamped it as a carnivore diet with fruit, or primal diet, and really didn't go deep into how he shouldn't have made a book so quick, how like the depths of how much he's suffering, kind of like Maria's being kind of transparent. In my opinion, she's not transparent enough because she still does the coaching and the books she needs to fix herself and coach herself. My aircon just kicked off. How to fix the body is don't eat all that protein if you don't want to have high B12 or gout or high uric acid levels. Eat small amounts, high fat. Fat should be your number one macro. That's why Sean went high fat, to try to get down the inflammation. Do not add fruit because you can't get into ketosis with fruit and you can't get enough glycogen storage with fruit. So it kind of fracks you up. You become very dependent on it, and that's why you start eating plates and plates and plates and plates and plates, and then the liver's choking because of the fructose. You're not in ketosis and you can't get enough stored glycogen, and a lot of women begin to develop thyroid issues because they can't regulate their energy storages. I know. You only need a moderate to low amount of protein while working on your sleep, your stress, your enzymes, digestive enzymes, and stomach acid, and your gallbladder. And then eventually you'll develop insulin sensitivity, which means that you only need a little bit of protein to drive, right? Insulin will drive amino acids into the muscle cells so they will grow. You don't need to eat a lot of protein to build muscle. That's a fallacy. That's only for people who are insulin resistant. Comment below. I'm going to talk more about, not in this video, about how gurus are not being honest and telling you the whole truth and being extremely transparent that they struggle like you guys are struggling, and then they push out advice that makes more people struggle, and then everyone becomes confused, and then they book consultations with me because I said something that struck a chord. They developed these issues when the gurus were saying that everything was going to be amazing once they went carnivore. So comment below, share this content. Do not forget to hit the notification bell and like up the... People are telling me, don't forget to say this and that and this. It's like you work so hard. I've been on this internet for a very long time, and as you can see, my channel doesn't grow because I don't put a lot of energy into selling myself. I don't. And then I say unpopular things like be careful, be careful, be careful. High fat. High fat. Make sure your gallbladder works. Moderate to low protein. Quality of protein. Stay hydrated. Balance your electrolytes because that's how you stay hydrated, not just water. And the list goes back to what I typically say. Comment below, share this content. I'll show you more of my experience with horses as I move from Hollywood, California to a small town in Tennessee to escape the tomfoolery of our upside down world that we're living in and age backwards as I enter close to my 60s. Peace. Energy. My Instagram, so beyond the tree line, is my house. You can kind of see it. My Instagram is Stephanie Ketogenic. Facebook fan page is Stephanie the Business Person. Whew, social media. One day I'll just be in my woods and there will be no phones. And I'm not trying to sell you a car. My Facebook fan page is Stephanie the Business Person, and I'm out. Business as in the body business. They name me, not me. And look at Roro. That's my Roro. That's my Rohan. My horse Thunder found him for me. I know it sounds weird, but that's what makes life interesting, and I'm out.